Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into something that, let's be real, most of us have felt at some point: reclaiming your self worth after a massive heartbreak. Okay, picture this. Imagine the sheer literal shock of hearing the words, "I don't trust you anymore," coming from the exact person you've sacrificed basically everything for. We're talking about the person you gave up your sleep, your free time, your joy, and even your own dreams for. The source material highlights this incredibly cruel paradox. Total strangers? They can never hurt us this deeply. The most devastating blow, always comes from the person you handed your deepest trust to. Watching them just walk away without even a glance at your tears is a wildly disorienting experience. And what does that sudden, jarring departure actually lead to? It leads to this one haunting question. You know the feeling, right? It's 3 a.m., you're staring up at the ceiling, the whole world is quiet, and that's exactly when the self-doubt creeps in. Because the rejection came from your ultimate confidant, you don't just question the relationship anymore. No, you start questioning your own foundational value. You think, was I really that flawed? Did I literally do everything wrong? It's a totally natural reflex, but as we're going to see, it is a really dangerous trap. So let's just shatter an illusion right now, because this is where the real healing begins. You probably viewed them as your entire universe, right? Like they had this permanent central place in your life. But the harsh reality presented here is radically different. They were actually just a guest. That's it. Some people just do not enter our lives to stay forever. They pop in simply to teach us a lesson before packing up and leaving. Grasping that difference, that's your very first step in taking your self-worth back. Think about it like this. When we trust someone entirely, we do something incredibly vulnerable. We basically open every single door to our heart. We just assume, hey, this person would never hurt me. But leaving that door completely unguarded carries a massive hidden danger. We tend to forget a fundamental truth of life. Time changes people. Circumstances change. What they need changes. We leave the door wide open, totally unguarded, completely forgetting that the person who walks through it tomorrow might not be the same person who walked through it yesterday. And that vulnerability, it leads straight into what the source calls the devaluation trap. It kind of happens in stages. First, you give them all your time. You're constantly checking in, always waiting by the phone. Second, when they start matching that energy, you start making excuses for them. Oh, they're just super busy at work right now. And finally, you lose your own value. The psychology here is absolutely fascinating, and it's just basic human nature. When your time and affection are super easily attained, with zero boundaries, it silently loses its value to the other person. You inadvertently devalue yourself just by giving too much. Let's talk about the key metaphor. The source strongly warns us, never hand the key to your happiness over to another person. And why is that? Well, the exact second you do, that person suddenly has the power to lock the door and just walk away. And where does that leave you? It leaves you locked outside in the freezing cold, waiting around for someone who may literally never return to let you back into your own life. Bottom line, your happiness has to stay in your own pocket. This brings up a huge conflict we all face: the eyes of trust versus the reality of actions. Through the eyes of trust, even massive mistakes and glaring red flags they look beautiful. You constantly invent these elaborate excuses for why they aren't giving you time or attention. But eventually, the reality of their actions has to set in, because behavior never lies. A person who truly values you is going to find 1 minute in their crazy busy day for you. A person who doesn't fear losing you, they're never going to respect your weight. Imagine standing in your yard, pouring water on a completely dead, dried-up tree. You can pour gallons of water on that thing every single day, but no way is it ever going to sprout new leaves. Pouring endless love, time, and care into a relationship that lacks basic mutual respect won't revive it either. The source uses this super powerful metaphor to hammer home a simple point. Love without respect is literally just water on dead wood. Okay, so how do we actually move forward? Well, we have to completely redefine what it means to heal. Healing does not mean amnesia. It doesn't mean you're suddenly going to forget those long walks, the effortless laughs, or the inside jokes. Healing actually means those memories no longer hold your present emotional state hostage. You take the wheel back. You can look at the past, acknowledge it happened, and just not let it ruin your Tuesday. To get to that place of healing, the explainer lays out some non-negotiable rules for maintaining your self-worth. Let's run through these quickly. First up, don't force connections. You simply cannot force a space for yourself in someone else's heart. Second, don't beg for attention. I mean, real relationships don't need you to constantly wave your arms to prove you exist. Third, recognize when the respect is gone. And lastly, stop making excuses for their terrible behavior. Putting these boundaries in place is exactly how you protect your heart. We usually view walking away from a relationship as a total failure, like we just gave up. But we need to reframe that completely. Walking away from a situation where you are repeatedly undervalued, where your feelings are constantly brushed aside, and your love is treated like some kind of weakness, that is not failing. Actually, scratch that. It is an act of profound courage. It is the ultimate act of self-love, and you are bravely reclaiming your own peace of mind. Now, you might be wondering, what about forgiveness? The source makes a really brilliant distinction here. You absolutely can and honestly should forgive. Forgiveness is just a tool to unburden your own heart. It lets you drop that giant, exhausting suitcase of resentment you've been dragging around. But, and this is a big but, forgiveness absolutely does not mean returning. Going back to receive the exact same pain on repeat from the exact same person, that isn't forgiveness. That's just a lack of wisdom. You can wish them the absolute best from a very safe distance. Look, this recovery isn't going to happen overnight. It's a genuine journey to power. It kicks off in those agonizing days of silence, where you're just staring at an empty phone screen, feeling the crushing weight of a text that's never coming. But as time goes on, it shifts into months of acceptance. You start to realize, hey, life hasn't stopped. The sun still came up today. And finally, it evolves into a future of independence. You're no longer defined by someone else ignoring you. You literally start to feel lighter. There is this incredibly beautiful, hard-won truth to take away from all this. The person who learns to mend their own broken heart cannot be easily broken again. Period. Surviving this kind of severe, world-shattering pain isn't just about getting back to your old normal. It's about birthing a much stronger, practically unbreakable version of yourself. Yes, the experience they left you with was brutal, for sure, but it was also an invaluable education. Once you glue your own pieces back together, your foundation is solid rock. So what does this rock-solid independence actually look like on a random Tuesday? Well, it looks like simple acts of reclaiming your joy. It's having the ability to spend a quiet afternoon totally alone and actually feeling at peace. It's drinking a cup of coffee or tea by yourself and not feeling like half of your soul is missing. It's daring to dream completely new dreams that have absolutely nothing to do with them. And as you move forward, it means loving deeply, but always making sure your heart's front door is properly guarded. The whole shebang of your happiness is securely back in your own hands. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative question to chew on. Will you let their departure be your failure or the beginning of your true strength? The person who walked away might have taken a piece of your past, sure, but there is no way they get to claim your future. You hold the power to turn this pain into the exact experience that makes you unstoppable. Thanks so much for joining me to break this down today, and always remember, your self-worth is yours to keep. Catch you next time.